Okay. Hello, Mr. Penev. Thank you for being here today with me and for agreeing to answer to our questions for our series of video podcasts. So first, I would kindly ask you to present yourself and the organization that you represent.
All right. Thank you so much, Vasile, for having me. My name is Georgi Penev, or Georgi Penev in Bulgarian. I am the director of the Bulgarian Fintech Association, and I represent a fair amount of the fintech sector in our country and in our region, of course.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And now I would kindly ask you to give us some details about the Bulgarian fintech scenery, the entire environment, the stakeholders, and the dynamic of the sector in general.
Right. Okay. So in Bulgaria, as of 2020, in our annual report, fintech report that we have here from our side, from the Bulgarian Fintech Association, we found more than 100 fintechs working from our region. And we have about 80, more than 80 more fintech supporting companies, companies that are, let's say, marketing companies, even some lawyers or IT development companies that have some kind of revenue that is related to fintech, but it's not a pure fintech. Because when we're talking about pure fintechs, we mean by this term we mean let's say Paynetics, Paysera, Clear, and many more Bulgarian companies that are in this digital finance sector. What we have here as a scenery, let's say, is apart from this private sector, we have the public sector, we have the authorities, we have the authorities that are related to the banking sector, and we have here the so-called Bulgarian National Bank. They're dealing with the banking licenses, with the e-money licenses, and so on and so forth. And on the other side, we have the Financial Supervision Commission, and they're dealing with the so-called non-banking sector, where we have the insurance sector, the pensions. We have, and when we're talking about fintech here, we can mention insurtech companies, mortgage tech companies, and so on and so forth. Um, that's pretty much it. So when we're talking about the concrete examples of the fintech sector in Bulgaria, when we're talking about public and private sector, and apart from this, we have some really nice initiatives that I would like to mention briefly, probably a bit later in this call, in this discussion.
So thank you very much, Georgi, for the presentation. Seems quite a vivid sector. And I would like to broaden a little bit our perspective and discuss the fintechs on the Balkan area, like the overall landscape and regulation. So your opinion, how do you see it?
So, uh, Balkan sector and this Balkan Peninsula that we are part of is, let's say, a bit um, historically slowed down, let's say, because just like you all know, we've been part in some way of the Eastern Bloc, so we definitely have some kind of a influence still in our country, and it's definitely making us a bit more conservative when we're talking about finance, when we're talking about innovations in that very same sector. But still, we have the public sector that is working pretty good, I would say. But still, there are many things to change and to improve. For an example, here in Bulgaria, we have the Financial Supervision Commission, just like I said, and we have an innovation hub that is created from them, that is executed from them. Basically, we have one spot where every fintech, any fintech that is interested in having a non-banking fintech idea created and developed in Bulgaria could simply go to the Financial Financial Supervision Commission, to this innovation hub, and give them give them their give them the pitch deck that they have, and the Financial Supervision Commission could simply say, okay, you have to be in compliance with this regulation and that regulation. So in that way, the fintechs, the startups, they can get in into consideration all these perks, these regulatory perks and these regulatory burdens that they have beforehand, before they start, which is something that is really nice. Still, the innovation hub at the Financial Supervision Commission is not working so good. We still have only a couple of requests per year, a couple of applications, and we simply need more resources devoted from our government in that direction. On the other side, we have one initiative that is really nice from the Bulgarian National Bank in the field of the so-called banking sector. The Ministry of Finance of our country, they said a bit more, like about a year ago, they said that they will have a regulatory sandbox working as soon as possible, but we still are about to see what's really going to look like, and just to see some execution from their side, because it's still from us it's unknown. We don't really know what's going on. So these two examples that I just gave, they are really important when we're talking about the development of digital finance, because in Europe, where we have 27 countries, we have more than 17 of these initiatives, meaning that more than the half of the countries, they already have a working innovation hub or a sandbox, meaning that it's widely dispersed, these kinds of initiatives, promotion initiatives, and we are still here on our Balkan Peninsula, we're still lacking them, or they're not working in the best possible way. And the second thing is about regulation. Even though that we are part of the European Union, I mean, Bulgaria is part of the European Union, we are still lagging behind when we're talking about PSD2, although that in Bulgaria it's been transposed already, I don't know, about a year or two ago, something like this. Still, we need this PSD2 being implemented better. And by better, I mean to work better and to make even our national bank should simply make the banks to open APIs, not only APIs for the sake of having an API, but to have an API that is working properly and that is easily accessible to the companies that are interested in acquiring the information, the data from this API. So these are the main concerns, let's say, the main critics when we are talking about regulation here in the Balkan Peninsula.
Okay, so thank you, Georgi. It sounds interesting. Romania is in a quite similar spot as you've described, and probably in terms of regulation, collaboration between authorities would be beneficial for the entire sector, as you've mentioned, since the framework in Bulgaria and Romania, it's quite similar from what I know. And I would go to another question now, since one of the hottest topic is Brexit. It's also it's a little bit shadowed by the pandemic, but related to the financial sector, what do you think are the main effects of the Brexit on the fintech environment in Europe in general, and mostly with a focus on our region and Bulgaria from your perspective?
So as one of my great friends, a Bulgarian friend of mine that is working, that used to work in innovative finance in UK, we had just recently an interview with her. So she said that you need five key factors in order to have a fintech hub to be developed. And I totally agree with this. It's so we have the talent, capital, access to markets, regulatory framework, and capability of the sector to create collaborations, to work together. So in all these five factors, in all these five aspects, we'll see some kind of a negative implication. When we're talking about talent, and from the perspective of the UK, we can simply say that they will lose a lot of the new professionals that could work if they were still part of the EU in this very in this sector of digital finance. Secondly, it's the capital. The capital in a sense where you have the investments, where you have the money in order to finance an adventure, a startup, a fintech startup, let's say. In that sense, both sides are losing, the UK and the EU, because from the one side we have the UK's fintech market that is comparatively small. It's about 60 million people, comparing to the 450 in the EU. It's more than obvious that the losing part here is the fintech in UK. But still, the fintech in UK is the sector. I mean, is the part, and used to be the part of the EU that was the most developed part in the digital finance. So we had there, and we're still having these great numbers when we're talking about investments. I'm not quite sure, but more than a billion pounds have been invested in the last year. And when we compare this to what we have here in the EU, we have the investments here are comparing to the size of the countries and the markets. We see that in the EU we invest a lot less than in the UK, meaning that the real interest in the capital, in the investments of in fintechs is in the UK. So in a broader sense, the EU is going to lose here, but still it's the UK and the EU. It's vice versa for sure. When we're talking about losing interests in just developing that kind of startups and ideas. Then we have the regulatory framework. We do know that the EU's framework is, let's say, a bit more conservative than the UK's one, just because here we have 27 countries there, and in the UK you have only a couple of them, and so the best way to go forward here is to have, let's say, a more liberal or anyway, to have a market that is not so conservative. So in that sense, the EU, it's really hard to have an open market, comparing, and much harder comparing to the UK. So we do know that we'll have some lacks when we're talking about regulatory framework in the EU. Then we have the capability of the sector to collaborate. Here it's all about how many NGOs do you have in a specific country, how many good initiatives that are gathering in one place, more than two fintechs, and in that sense, what we see is that the UK, they have many more fintech associations, they're much more developed. They have many initiatives that we are still lacking, and we simply don't have them yet. But the EU is doing its best, but it's kind of slower than the UK.
Okay, Thank you, Georgi, for sharing with me and with our viewers this opinion. And I would link again to the pandemics because a lot of jobs moved online or remotely. And as I've seen in some rankings, Romania and both Bulgaria were all for fintechs or for remote working considered very good places of Bucharest, Sofia, and in general the countries. So with an important potential and perspectives. And in going further, I would kindly ask you to let us know what are you doing locally in terms of policy for promotion, the fintech development. So what are you trying to do? Some concrete examples in supporting the field, because perspective and potential, it's clearly there.
Right. So when we are talking about policies here in Bulgaria that are related to digital finance, it's undoubtedly we have to say that our country is still conservative when we're talking about digital finance, but we see some really nice examples. Let's say in the very last initiative that we've seen from the Ministry of Finance, it was related to the so-called national strategy on financial literacy. In this strategy, there was a public discussion with a working group, and our association, the Bulgarian Fintech Association, was part of it, among which 40 other players. And we participated. By participating in this group, what we've done and what we've managed to make is to show what is the interest of our sector, and that we do understand and we know that how important is to have specific policies related to the increase of the financial literacy when we're talking about digital finance products and services. So in that sense, what we've done is to have a specific measure that was implemented, that was applied in the so-called action plan that is part of the strategy. And in this action plan, we have the measure to create contents that is specifically related to the education on financial, these so-called digital finance services and products. So what we will do in the next couple of months, weeks, hopefully, is simply to sit down with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education, and from our side, the private sector, to propose them that kind of a content that is reliable, that is non-commercial content, that is strictly related to giving education and to providing knowledge to people about these contemporary digital finance that we see in 2021. So this was really nice initiative that we've seen just recently, and we are still working on couple of others, but we are still far away from what we want to see. We're still lacking, let's say, this. We don't really have any public discussion on, let's say, the regulatory sandbox that is the Ministry of Finance is creating. So we are still looking forward to work there, to be working with the Ministry of Finance, with the public sector, in the direction of creating this promotion initiative. So hopefully we'll simply see something in the next few weeks. But it's up to our government to understand the importance of digital finance. And lastly, it's not only about how important this is for us as an association, as the private sector, but it is important for our economy as well. Because what we've seen in the last year is that the revenue of of the fintech companies in Bulgaria, it went and it peaked to 350 million. That was the revenue for from 2019. And even though that is not a big part of the GDP, it's still a really important part that is related to and giving us a perspective and let's say an option for our economy to catch up to the Western economies. So it's something really important for us on a national level as well, just to make sure that that we catch up the rest of the EU countries, just in a similar way that the Lithuanian government is doing it. So hopefully, in a really nice day in the future, we will see our government to embrace all the initiatives that we see in Lithuania, and hopefully we will see the development, the very same development of the fintech sector as in Lithuania, here in Bulgaria and on the Balkan Peninsula.
So thank you very much, Georgi, for your time. Your presentation, the details that you gave seem very interesting, and I'm quite confident that both in Bulgaria and Romania, the sector will develop because perspectives and potential is here. And I would also add to what you shared with us just now, that I think between or together with the private sector, so the fintech sector, the financial sector, the authorities, also probably the educational systems of universities, as you mentioned, should also become part of this conversation and should try to drive the discussion and to move the field and the domain by bringing solution to move it forward. And probably Lithuanian example or other examples will be used hopefully by our environments, by our authorities. But I also hope that both countries will develop maybe a joint model for driving this sector forward, because this will be one of the opportunities in the European Union. So thank you again for your time and for sharing with me and with our viewers this insight.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.